Hello, everyone. I know it's been a long time since you all have seen me, but I am here today. I am back and I'm starting a new season of Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together podcast. This is it feels good to be back on air again. We're going to get into this amazing story. Hold on one second. But first, I am going to play this intro.
This for the queens, sisters manifesting their dreams. Get your cream by any means and beam with self-esteem. Beauty supreme and Buddha walk so mean. The way you fit in them jeans, you eat your cornbread and greens. Dance or a doctor, red wine or vodka. Redesign your spot and redefine your mantra. Retwist your locks and realign your chakras. Doing your squats and getting closer to God, huh? Brunching with your squad or taking a girl's trip. Adjust your crown, you God's gift to the world, sis. Celestial body, drink your water. Meditate, sun-kissed goddess, heavenly order. Levitate, tribe of Ashanti, black girl magic, melanin popping, whether you ratchet or lavish, whether you bougie or savage, you a gift and a treasure. You got to love a black girl getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, man. These black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, dog.
And we're back. All right. Tonight is going to be a story about it's a true crime story. So this is for anyone who, hey Dwana. This is for anyone who's into true crime stories. This story, I believe, was on Oxygen. My guest will let me know if it is. But before we get into that, I want you all to drop a 1 in the chat if the questions I'm about to ask sound familiar. All right. So these questions are for you, or if you know of anyone. Have you or anyone you know been in a toxic relationship? Have you or anyone you know recognized the sign of toxicity in a relationship? I need you to drop your ones in the chat and let me know. Have you ever stayed in a toxic relationship longer than you should have? Or if you know someone who's done that. Have you ever tried to change or fix a toxic partner or your toxic partner? Have you ever felt trapped or isolated in a toxic relationship? Have you ever lost touch with friends or family due to a toxic relationship? Have you ever been made feel guilty or responsible for toxic behavior of your partner? And lastly, have you ever found it difficult to set boundaries with a toxic person in your life? Okay, the ones are lighting up in the chat. And someone put a 1 in the chat for myself. So this is please. So this is what we're going to do. And we're going to talk about some of these questions. But for people who do not know me, I see a lot of new faces. My name is Ursula B. I am your host of Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together. And this is a podcast about mental health and wellness, especially for us sisters, because we can relate to each other just how we can. So what I'm going to do is bring my wonderful guest out of the waiting room. And if she looks familiar to anybody, drop a 1 in the chat as well. Hey, Cindy.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
It's been a day. A good day.
Good. I'm so glad you, especially with what's going on, and a good thing in your personal life. Can I mention it, or did you want to mention it?
Oh, you can mention it.
Okay. So Cindy, when we got on today, she said, well, I'm going to be a grandmother. When? Oh, my daughter's in labor now. What? Do we need to reschedule? She's like, no. So let's thank the grandbaby to let the grandbaby hold off at least until we finish.
I know.
All right. So Cindy and I met through a mutual podcaster, and Cindy was lighting the chat up because I was a guest. And you all need to check out Mission for Mental Health. And then Cindy and I connected with each other. So in that time, I found out that Cindy is an author. Would you like to hold your book up, please? I know, I
It's a little
know.
beat up. It's a little because I've
It
been
is for people so they can recognize what this book looks like. And after you all hear us talk, you're going to want to purchase the book. The link is in the show description box. And I also, please like, comment, and share this video because we're going to learn tonight. So, Cindy,
yeah.
where do we start? This is such a loaded, this is going to be a loaded podcast, but in a great way.
Yes.
So, let's talk about early life when you were growing up. And
Okay.
for those who don't know, I read about half, a little more than half of the book. So I did have some questions. I do remember you made a comment about just not being seen or felt like you were seen as a child. Is that right?
Yes, I think this was when I was talking about I'm not sure if that's the one when I was in a play. I'm not sure
Yes.
if that's the one you're talking about. So I can't remember if I was 7 or 8, but I was in a play and it was a
Mm-hmm.
Christmas play. And there was a scene in where they needed a child to grab um, the person who played Jesus hem of his cloth and said and make a statement out loud and say it.
Mm-hmm.
So the person that was supposed to do it didn't do it. So they pulled me in the next show because this was all live on stage. And I went to pull and say my line, but I think I said it so low or I just froze. And they kind of like pushed me out the way
Oh.
and went past that. And I'm like, why did I freeze? Why am I not ever being heard?
Mm.
And it was just as a child, I think I was extremely shy and was just my voice was always silent is how I felt. And I was
Wow.
gotten to the point. I went from being this tomboy, loud and then down to where I was kind of like hidden. And even
Mm.
in family, and I don't think my family really knew what I was going through because I cried in silence. I would go and hide behind couches and stuff, and I would just cry,
Mm-hmm.
getting picked on by my young relatives, but they didn't know any better. We were all young, but the
Right.
names that I was being called by my own family members. One family
Right.
member said, "You almost didn't make it in because you were ugly." So,
Ah, I
yes,
know. Family. They can be that person. So, can we talk about your high school boyfriend? I
yes.
remember part of the story, and he was talking about how you were dressed, and sounded like you had a banging body back in the way you described it, which I believe it.
But I would say this. I was a track runner. I was a true track sprinter. So I had the body of a sprinter. I had,
Stallion. Go ahead.
yes. Even though I had all of that, I was not that one that thought I was all that cute. I
Mhm.
thought I was kind of skinny. Then I thought my legs were too big. So I worked very hard with my coach. And he said, if you do what I say, you're going to win the nationals. You just listen to what I say. So I was a long jumper.
Oh.
And I remember the drills that he took me through and all of this. So I ended up through all of that. I won nationals. Basically, he did it. I
Mhm.
jumped the furthest I ever jumped. I went 20 feet at the age of,
Wow.
I was 17 years old. So for my gift, because my mom worked her butt off to make sure I had the money to go to this huge event. And she said, if you win, I'll let you go to New Jersey to go see my cousin, we're 5 months apart. That's my road dog, my cousin. And so I won and I got to go. So while I'm there, I remember seeing a young man that I had a big old crush on. And I was truly a sprinter. I had no boobs. So I didn't like
Mhm.
really wearing a bra because to me, it was no point in wearing a bra.
Right.
So I remember having on a cute little shirt it was a half shirt and some little shorts. And I was standing out there talking to my cousin. My boy cousin was out there. So he was very protective of me and his
Right.
sister and I. And we took some pictures. I get back home And I'm so excited about the pictures. I thought I was looking cute. Finally, I know I worked hard to get this body here, and it was all about really track. And I showed him that picture, and he, I can't remember, I think he slapped it out of my hand.
Oh,
And he told
really?
me, oh, he told me that he didn't call me a
Mhm,
hoe, but he didn't like the way I was dressed. I don't like
mm,
you wearing that. That's too revealing, or something to that effect. And I'm like,
mhm.
what? It's I wear less than this when I wear my track uniform. The way
Right,
we
right.
had to dress with those panties on and shirts that we wore that was really, really tight. That's what we ran. Or the shorts were really, really short. My butt cheeks weren't hanging out. My boobs weren't hanging out. And I'm like, so I started really dressing different. He was very
Mm,
critical about the way I dress.
mhm.
Um, and it continued on through life, even with other men that I dated.
And I was gonna ask you that, do you feel that if that was the beginning of a pattern on how you navigated in relationships?
Definitely with maybe some of the clothes, but definitely with my hair. My hair was a huge thing
Really?
because they didn't like me cutting my. I love my hair cut short, like the Halle Berry shortcut. And it's like when I'm not with someone, that's when I felt like I thrive. But actually, my stepfather didn't like short hair. There's a lot of older men that didn't like women cutting their hair. And my
Mhm.
stepfather, or my who raised me, was my father who raised me. He didn't like short hair. He didn't like you cutting your hair. So I always wore my hair long. Girl, when I turned 18, I cut all of it off. I
Did
was
you?
I was Halle Berry hair. So I had like got myself back, and then I'm with my high school boyfriend who kind of crushed that the clothes, and I just really never really picked up the pattern, but I would always change my look for who I'm with, all the way up
Oh,
to the person in the book.
right,
I met
right.
him, my hair was short because I go long, short, long, short. But my hair was short, and I was thinking about leaving it short, and I let it grow to about this length. And
Mhm.
I was sitting at a table, and I remember my best friend was sitting there. We were at one of my aunt's house, and I said to her, I said, "Okay, my hair don't got too long. I'm finna cut it off." And he kind of mumbled, but it was loud enough for him to say, "Oh no, the hell you not." And that was it. Never
And
touched my hair, never cut it. It grew down my back.
you didn't shake the table?
Nope. I knew I wasn't supposed to cut my hair. It was like
Wow.
my dad telling me not to cut my hair, or men saying you losing your strength. But I let men run how I wore my hair. And for me to
Mm.
start my lock journey, honey, I'm loving every minute of it. And nobody can tell. I don't care what you say now. I'm not
Welcome
cutting
to
my
the
hair.
club.
But
Welcome to the
those
club.
triggers, I don't think, because even, I'm like, oh, he cares about me. But I want women to know, be your authentic self. If you see little triggers like that, it's a
Yeah.
lot bigger, and you don't even realize how big it is. That's just gradually breaking you down into a shell, and you're not even realizing it. It's so subtle,
Right.
so subtle.
It is very subtle. And it's so subtle, and it's like a red flag, but it has the red roses covering it just to make it look so good. But we know, all of us have been there. I've felt it, and we just ignore it.
Mhm.
It's easier to, and you said that in your book. So that resonated with me. And let me get to my notes.
Uh-oh.
Because I
Uh-oh.
okay. You see all this scroll right here. Okay. So before we get to the end, because that's what a lot of people, including myself, want to get to, can you talk about the military relationships and the husband? That was intriguing to me.
Oh, my military. And I remember when I left for the military.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I went to another station, but the biggest one is when I went to Japan.
Okay.
And in Japan is where I met my second daughter's father.
Mm-hmm.
And that person, literally, he treated me like a queen.
Yes.
He did. And ended up getting pregnant again.
Mm-hmm.
But he did treat me like a queen. And I was not used to some of the things, because the first thing he said to me was, "You better not kill my baby." And I'm looking at him because I knew the trauma I went through with my first daughter. Father,
Mm-hmm.
we were young and he didn't want me to have it. And so for someone to do special things while I was over in Japan, something as simple as we were at the beach, he carried me because he was like, "I don't want you to be tired." So he carried me around the beach because I'm pregnant, carried me into the water and told me to get on his back. So it was things like that. So in the military, that relationship was good until he got
Mm-hmm.
stationed somewhere else. So now he's going back stateside. And I was mad because I wanted him to stay. Don't leave me. I had the abandonment. So at that point, I cut
Mm-hmm.
a relationship that could have probably still went in a positive way. I literally said, I sabotaged it. You don't love me. You don't care. If you did, you wouldn't have left. And
Mm-hmm.
I stopped talking to him, even if he tried to call me. I was like, well, you're going to be stationed on this side. I'm going to be stationed on the other side of the world. I
Mm-hmm.
was putting all the blame on him, and he had nothing to do with it. It was the military. Well, I'm new to the military. I didn't want to hear that because this is the person who had really treated me really, really well. I saw how he treated his mother. It was the opposite of what I went through with my first daughter. But yet and
Right.
still, because of that, him leaving, and because I'm sabotaging it, my first daughter, my high school sweetheart, actually got in contact with me while I was over in Japan. "I want you to come back. I want you to
Yeah.
marry me." All those red flags I had with him. But because of how I was feeling, and I put it in my head that my daughter's father, who I was pregnant with, didn't want me, I go back.
Yeah,
So
I saw
I have
that.
this pattern. I go back to something that should have been left alone. He told me he got me. He told me he had a place for us to stay. All of this stuff. I'm in the military. I could have did very well in the military. And
Mm-hmm.
I chose to get out. I got out. I go back. And he did not have any place to live. He ended up getting an apartment in a questionable area.
Mm-hmm.
There was no furniture in there. And now I feel stupid. So now
Mm.
I'm back home, no job, almost 8 months pregnant. And
Wow.
my mother was taking care, my younger siblings. So it was, I can't be a burden on her. I only had a little money saved from the military, couldn't find a job, 8 months pregnant.
Oh my God.
She says, "Well, you're going to have to get on welfare."
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't have to do anything yet because I was still attached to the military. So I had the baby, came back. I fought going. I said, "Why should I get on welfare? There's nothing wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to work." But I couldn't find anything. And then trying to take care of a young child and then my other daughter. So I went down to the welfare office. The lady told me, "You have 10 days to find a job or we will start your check."
Oh.
So day number 7, I had a job. And I was very happy to call them and said, "I don't need your check."
Ah.
Nothing to say if you get in a situation and you need it. I would
Mhm.
never judge or someone who has to be in that situation, because
That's
that's what
it.
welfare is for, a temporary help.
That's it.
And there's people who abuse it and there's people who temporarily needed help, because
Mhm.
years later I had to go and get food stamps
Right.
because of a situation. And I was like, well, I've paid into it, but I
Mhm.
didn't need it at 20 some years old. That was my thought. I don't judge anyone who has to
No,
be in
you
that
can't.
situation, because, that's my path. That was what I needed to do. So I don't
Mhm.
judge on that on that part, but
Not at
it
all.
just pushed me harder to find a job. So you said the military. What else did you ask me?
Oh, let's see. 1 second. So you can let everybody know briefly about how you became a cop, because
So
then we're gonna get into the nitty gritty of
I,
everything.
I'm out of the Marines now. I'm wanting to now. I want to be. I'm just be upfront, officer friendly. I thought I was gonna be at the elementary school talking to the kids about being a police officer. That's how I saw myself.
Girl, in Atlanta, no ma'am. Are you kidding?
Oh
You
yes,
talking
I
about
can.
being officer friendly and you, oh, I was about to say Bowen Homes or something.
Well, I was in an agency outside of Atlanta, but
Oh,
some
okay.
of our calls ran into Atlanta. So some of the
Really?
addresses was Atlanta, but it was a different county.
Okay.
So I worked for that county.
Okay. Understood. Understood.
So I made a I remember going through the process. It was a year long. So in between that, because I briefly worked at the post office, I became a security officer. So I was like, oh, this will help me. Let me be a security. Yeah, security and police, it is not it's not the same. So I think it was something all over the news saying you need to hurry up and Dewana's Dewana, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's why I put it up when she said she knew you.
Dewana! Hey! Oh my gosh! Yes.
That's
Wow.
funny. Small world.
Yes. Oh my mom used to watch, had her children.
No
They were in her
way.
day. I'm all off topic.
No,
They were
that's
in
okay.
my mother was they were in my mom's daycare. Oh my gosh, the one is awesome. She ain't no joke now. I will tell you, she was no joke as a mother. Yes, she did not
Oh,
play.
I
Those
believe
kids were
it. I believe.
her children highly intelligent. Yes.
Look, she
But
said
I
yes.
so oh wait till I tell my mom.
Lana is the truth. I've always liked her.
Yes.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
So I went through the process. Something was on the news that they were taking too long. So I get, they speed up the process. And we were we actually had a dual academy. So we started off with actually two females.
Mhm.
And partially through the academy, the other female was faded into another position within the department. So now I'm the only female. And I came out of the Marine Corps. I dropped that child. I'd gotten back in shape. I made sure I was obese. I didn't
Yeah.
give those guys any, because I'm a runner. So in our runs and in our, because it's physical, I'm a physical person when it comes to sports and things like that. So
Mhm.
I think I did very well in the academy because I had there were some guys that were making sure I trained a little bit harder because it was like you got to be okay out there on the streets. So we would run extra. We would go to the weight room, but
Mhm.
going through the academy was it was pretty okay. It was not as strict as I was in the Marine Corps,
Right.
but some of the one of the instructor was prior Marine, so he took us to another level when he had us.
Did
But
he?
yes, but overall, getting through the academy, I think that's where I actually tore my ACL. But
Ooh.
I was in such good shape that my muscles kind of catered around my knee. Found out later that the damage to my knee came from either there or in the military, but it was a jumping, not a running
Mm.
situation, is what my doctor told me. So going through the academy, but the getting as a police officer on, I don't know if you saw some of the things I experienced as a female officer in the book.
Uh,
It's it's from being pushed in the chest by a supervisor and getting the door slammed in my face after he pushed me out my own office.
mm.
Um, you are going to be sexually harassed, whether it just
Oh,
decide.
one more thing. I should have said this before. To, we'll have to think of creative ways to say SA or unaliving people or
Oh,
yeah, because YouTube will strike us. So
okay. So
yeah,
I was
SA
well.
is good. You can say
Okay,
that.
I can say
Mhm,
essay. Okay, what was the other
mhm.
one you said? Another,
Unalived,
huh?
unalived.
Oh,
What your
um,
ex didn't want you to do to the baby.
oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, we ain't go over
My apologies. But I
Okay.
got you. I got
Okay.
you.
So those things you can experience as a female
Mhm.
officer. So when I do see young female officers now, even though I'm retired, I will always tell them to always self-care. Focus
Mhm.
really on the job. Everybody preach you can't get your money and honey in the same place.
Girl.
If they stick to that, their career will be at another level, because
Mhm.
a lot of the male officers do respect the female officers and what they bring to the table. I would not say it. My experience was not all bad. I had a good experience through law
Mhm.
enforcement for the most part. I felt like I had a lot of big brothers who really sometimes they would fuss at the females about going on a call. I'm like, my uniform is the same as yours. And
Right, right.
I don't got fussed at a couple of times. Well, you shouldn't have got there first. Yes, I should.
Mhm.
So it's a good thing. Like they say, 3% is a problem in the community. Same thing with law enforcement. Overall, I've had a good experience with the law
Good.
enforcement out of the years. Even
Well,
even though
good.
campus was a little different, but yes, I will definitely say
Right.
it.
So let's shift to the topic of this book.
Okay.
Woo, where do I start? Okay.
Take my glasses off on that one. Let me put
Let
my
me
other
take
ones
my
on.
glasses off and roll my sleeves up for this. Okay. So I'm gonna say the name. I'm gonna use the name that you used in the book. We're
Okay.
talking about William. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm gonna just pick out some pieces of the book that I'd like you to explain on. Um, so everyone, Cindy met William, and when you were with him, when you met him, and you had asked him if he had protection, and when he showed you his pow pow, you know what I'm talking about? I don't want to say that word either. Do you think he was doing that to? I know you meant a condom, but he meant a pow pow. But do you think he did that like a subliminal intimidation? I
I
found that
really
kind of true. That just raised the eyebrow with me.
and at that time I thought it was funny. But as we go through, that wasn't because I've never. I'll ask if you got protection. That's a question that you ask,
Right.
or we got to use protection. And for him to bring out the bang bang and kind
Yeah.
of hold it, and I'm sitting here looking for, didn't have mines with me, looking for how I can get out this door,
Mm.
and then he cracks a laugh, and that's when I go down because I was literally just caught off guard. And then he kind of cracks a laugh and plays it off. He was like, "Well, you the one asked."
See,
I'm just playing with you. I'm just playing. I know you know how to do these things to.
it's that mental warfare. I think that's how I took it, knowing how the somewhat of how this story ends. You know,
Yes,
because I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking what you were thinking. Condom.
yes,
That's
that's exactly what I meant. And
right.
for you to walk all the way over to your bag and you pull that out of that was,
Makes you
but my
think, right?
my state of mind
Yeah.
that you know that's yeah that's pretty. It is what it takes someone from the outside to look in to see, but
Mhm.
that's I know what I meant when I asked them for that. And then for him to pull that out, and then my mind goes, how do I get out of this? And then when he starts laughing and joking around and being silly,
He
I
knew
go
what he
right
was
back
doing.
down. So
He knew
he was testing me.
he
He
was.
checked that box with me. Like, okay, I got her there.
Yeah. Okay, this was very triggering for me in the book. When his habit of disappearing in the relationship. And if you all are together, I'm just saying on a Sunday, and then you don't hear, oh, when he said he disappeared for 2 months.
Like, did not hear from him. I went on about my business. I was like, oh well. You're calling me, you're talking to me really, really hard, and
Right.
then you just disappear. So I just went on about life. And I remember when he texted, or no, he called me 2 months later, and I look at the phone and I just threw it on the bed and gone about my business.
Right.
I
Right.
should have stayed there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he became persistent because he calls the next day. He calls the next day. He sends a text. He sends a text. So you're just breaking it down, breaking me down. And then he's very good with his words. And so understanding my state of mind, like, okay, then I start playing in my head, like, what are you doing, Cindy? Why are you tripping? So what?
Right.
He didn't call you for 2 months. No big deal. Making excuses, making excuses. And then finally I call, and then we start talking again. That
Yeah.
lasted so many months. But later on, I could attest for what was going on for the 2 months
See.
disappearance. I know why he disappeared for 2 months. I know all of those answers now.
So put a pin in that because we want to know why too. But I'm asking anyone in the chat, if you have a question for Cindy, respectfully, please drop it in the chat. If you know of that's been ghosted, or if you have been ghosted like Cindy or I have been, and I know it's a lot of people, drop a 1 in the chat as well. Talk to me. Let me hear from you all. Yeah, I didn't like that disappearing. That was very triggering for me. And now that I think about it, it's funny how you can, even if the person, how toxic some relationships can be, that you could physically be with a person, yet they can still mentally or emotionally ghost you as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But after all, I asked myself, I'm like, why do you put up with this? What is going on with you?
Mm-hmm.
Because in my heart of hearts, I really truly love this man.
Right.
I loved him even through each incident that happened, that I think a healed woman or would have just left. Deuces.
Mm-hmm.
I would leave, and then I would explain it away.
Right.
I would explain back why. Oh, he didn't mean that. He
Mm-hmm.
meant it this way. I would come up with he ain't got to say nothing. He was used to he had checked so many boxes off to make sure I was where he needed me.
Yes.
He did little tests here and there early on that I wasn't catching. And I
Mm-hmm.
almost gave him the map on how to deal with me.
That's exactly what it is.
I
You know,
gave him the map.
yeah.
Oh, if you have another woman, I understand, I'm out. So he made sure he kept that other woman, that we never connected, because the other woman might have said, I don't care about you having another woman. I'm staying. I'm not going
Mm.
anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Because later on in the book, you see why I made that statement.
Right, right. Okay. So let's talk about y'all. You all have been together. How long was it from when you all first met, from when he told you that he was a pastor?
I can't remember because we had the ghosting in between. It had been some, I don't think it made it quite to a year, but it was later
That
on.
long?
It had been I know it had been some months. I'm trying, and it's been some years since it's happened,
Right.
but I'm trying to remember the first time I ended up going to church. I remember where I was at. I was working a part-time job, and we were just having a conversation. We were just talking about life and how we got on Bible and God and things like that. He was extremely intelligent. He was very intelligent. While
Mm-hmm.
he walked around with 2 master's degrees, everything your mom, make sure they got master's degrees. But he was intelligent enough to know He's good with his words. And so we were having a conversation. I don't know how, and I said something about pastor or church or whatever. And he was like, he might've said, I have a church. And I said, excuse me? I said, what do you mean? And well, I'm a pastor. What? I said, we have had, so you must not preach on premarital.
Right.
Ever. Because if that was the case, we shouldn't have went there. That was my thought. So that's another thing he checked off. Just to see, okay, we don't did that, but she still stayed. So why you talking all of
pushing?
You talking all of this, but you still stayed. Another woman, I say a heel woman or who is not going to put up with that, been like, you know what, I'm out, and walked away. He pushed it out there to see if I was going to leave, and I didn't. So he just added. Because I mean, he put it out there for me, and I still stayed.
I wanted to ask you about that, how long it was, because that came out of nowhere. And I'm reading the book and I said, oh, when did he should have said something, but it's a mental chess game.
Yes.
Exactly. So let's talk about this Kendra person in the back of the car when you all were going to church or something.
Yes. I would say our personalities were very similar, very sweet. Okay. Yes, I'm a sweet person, but she was definitely a very nice person. I would drive from Atlanta to his hometown. And from there we would drive to the church. Now, prior to that, him and I had did that a couple of times because he preached in another city within Georgia. So we would ride together. Sometimes his mom ride with us. And he said, well, a friend of mine is going to ride. She has her church here, but her and her daughters are going to ride with us. It's a family friend. Okay. I sit in the front seat with him, and she sat in the back with her two children. We're talking the trip is the hour or so long to the church. So all of us all in there together. I'm talking to him. I know because I had started calling him babe. That's how I referred to him. And her and I spoke after the sermon.
What in the sister wives is going on here?
I literally believed that she was a family friend. And what he had to explain to her was I was just a friend that wanted to support him preaching. So we drove to this location. And at the location, her and I sat right next to each other as he preached with her children and all that. So I can only imagine what the congregation was saying.
Oh, that's right.
Because I was right, because I'm still fairly new to coming there.
Right.
And I remember I had went outside. Her and I we were outside after we were talking. He was handling some church stuff. And I still to this day, and I wished I would have been able to ask her, but she made a statement to me saying, I like you better than the other ones.
Yeah.
So my thought was she had been around him because he told me she was married and she's just coming to support. But my thought was this me making my own story up that she had been around his other women that he had dated or had children with, and that they didn't get along. And so she's happy that he found a new person. So she likes me more than the other one. That's how I received it. I didn't delve any deeper. It was nothing to question.
Right.
Not knowing years later, after her and I have a candid conversation, that him and her were together.
So were those his kids in the back seat?
No, they didn't have children together.
They didn't?
No.
So what did it mean when she said that she was married?
He told me that she was married. She had children with her prior husband. She was divorced. But he told me she was married, currently married, and that she was
Oh,
just coming to support.
really?
So he had us both right there together. I've called, I've called his, I remember calling his house one time, and she answered the phone. Um, I was like, hey, let's speak to him. And she was like, oh, he ran to the store. He's not here. I'll let him know. I'll let him know you call when he gets back. I said, okay, thank you. Get off the phone. Apparently, when he comes home, he calls me. Hey, babe,
What
what you
in
need?
the hell?
So he probably was upstairs talking to me while she was probably downstairs. But this is everything I find out. I don't put a whole lot of puzzles and pieces together.
Right.
Um, of just it's right there in your face and you don't know it. And I gave him a lot of credit because one, his position
Oh no, her
as well,
computer.
his position in the church. I watched how people in the community was very receptive of him, loving on him is what I saw
Right, right.
through the early parts.
So, okay, can we go back a little bit? I
Mhm.
want to talk to you about the signals that women were giving at this family cookout. Now, was he there? Was she there as well?
I'm trying to remember which. Okay.
Cookout, and there was with the uncle, and there was a big family fight, like a brawl or something.
Oh, it's been more than one. I'm trying to remember.
Okay, well, we can skip past that then. Because, okay, let's talk about.
Oh, no, no, no. That was my family. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh,
That
okay.
was that was at my family. That he had did something. And
Right.
that was partially that was Memorial Day weekend. And I had worked on the road. I was at that point I worked in the office, but I wanted to help out the other supervisors to have a weekend off. So I told them, hey, y'all take the weekend off. I'll work, I'll come in and work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I went over to my aunt's house. She was having a cookout. And so
Mm-hmm.
he had came down for that. But his he had a sister, his cousin, his nephew, and his niece all came. My daughter said family reunion. It really wasn't a family reunion, but it was a big cookout. I know it was a lot of family there. But
Uh-huh.
he came because it was a lot of my aunt's friends that were there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh Lord, child. Woo. So I was already feeling down because that was the day that a mother of six lost one of her children in
Okay.
a devastating fire. Well, kind of one a fire, but the
Oh,
baby was pinned between the
yeah.
car, and so he passed away. So I was really trying to deal with that because I was a supervisor, and I know a lot of my officers was experiencing this 4-year-old died. And so I remember sitting down talking to my aunt. We were out in her yard, and I came up. At one point, my aunt had pulled me aside, and she said, "My girlfriend is leaving because she said that William tried to touch her breast." What?
Mm.
Well, something wrong. Here's my mind. Something wrong with your girlfriend, because I know
Mm.
he would not do that. Girl, all them other red flags, but I'm still going. No, he
Right.
wouldn't. He. Why would he do that? And then it supposedly happened in front of his family, or he says, normally I won't say nothing because I get nervous and I'm scared to confront on
Yeah.
something that devastating for him to come at me, because at this point he knew how to flip things. So I had to be a little careful on how. So I saw the lady. I think the lady ended up leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had pulled him aside and I said, I had mustered up enough strength and courage to confront him. It probably kind of helped that, I still got other family members around. Would I have confronted
Right.
him when it was just him and I? Probably no, because what triggered back? Yeah, I got protection.
Uh-huh.
So let me not deal with him that way. Um, Still not trying to play things down in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him, I say, well, this lady said that you had touched her. Girl, what? I didn't do something like that. Why would I do something? I've been up there with, and he named his niece the whole
Mm-hmm.
time because niece, he had manipulated her so much. Yeah, she's gonna agree. And so I was like, I told my aunt, I was like, well, he said he didn't do it. So I guess she's lying. Maybe she like him. Maybe she wanted, because he always, all these women coming after me, they throwing themselves at me. But
Mm-hmm.
I got you. I never do something like that. He was always saying that to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that leads to, he knew that the person that was there, one of my uncles was there, had touched me when I was a child. So
Mm.
he knew that. So now I guess he want to be big and bad is what he's telling me. I heard it was a whole different story than what was said to me, because after the fact, my aunt has told me exactly everything else that had transpired.
Right,
But what
right.
is in the book is what was told to me and what I observed. So it went from, I thought that maybe my aunt had said something about telling my uncle what
Mm.
was allegedly said, and he was confronting him. Um, and so it was like, he's a preacher. Why don't y'all go out there and pray about it or something, or talk about it? And so the next thing I know, he wanted to brawl with him. It ended up
Mm.
where it was a huge fight in the front yard. It was
Really?
crazy. I think my uncle's nose got broken.
What?
Then they must have been doing a lot of talking up the face, because all I heard him jump up, say,
Pow
get me my,
pow.
yes, because my uncle was going to get his pow pow. And so I ran to the car and I grabbed the lockbox with the pow pow in it and kept it in my hand. And I'm screaming, let's go, let's go. Let's get out of here. Thank goodness. I believe my children had left already,
Mm-hmm.
because there was a lot of us there. And I remember his family members jumping in my car. And I'm like, let's get out of here. And I
Mm.
wouldn't. He kept saying, hand it to me, hand it to me. And I'm driving with it stuck on the side of the door where he couldn't reach it. And I think he had had too many drinks on top
Mm-hmm.
of that. And then I believe I could hear his niece talking to her auntie, who took off after. So my understanding is my uncle was following me, and then his
Mm.
sister was following. And I'm like speeding, going all over the place, trying to lose him.
Wow.
Um, um, but my uncle didn't know where I lived, and so I ended up
Right.
losing him. So we got away from that. But my understanding, found out later, those type of incidents happen at his house or his family a lot.
Really?
Because I remember one holiday I was heading down there. I got off the exit. I was like, hey, I'm probably 5 minutes away. He said, some stuff happened at the house. I need you to turn around. I drove all the way back to Atlanta.
What?
His niece told me later it was a huge brawl with the family.
Wow.
And he was the center of attention of that one.
So he obviously prone to violence. I see.
I see. Yes, because I remember I never knew of him being, he got mad at one woman. Someone had told me at one point, because I think she had went through his phone. But
Mm.
it's fighting a man, yes, because his fight supposedly with my uncle was to defend me. So
You
he
think that
will.
that was a deflection?
That's what he was saying. He should have never touched me. So he will fight and defend a woman, is how I view. I never seen him
Mm.
violent towards a woman. Like, it was more protection for children and women, is what he
Mm.
tried to display to me. So
Wow.
I literally really thought that fight was defending. He was like, he should have never touched you. I'm gonna whip his tail for putting his hands on you when
Right.
you were a child.
Whew. Okay.
Probably had nothing to do with it, obviously.
Right,
'Cause
right.
he obviously can definitely be violent.
Well, speaking of the violence, so let's switch, let's pivot towards when you found out that he was engaged to Kendra? You left the house and came back and she was there, or y'all had a confrontation or a non-violent confrontation?
No, no, that one, I can't remember if I went to church with him earlier. It was a lot of conversation with a family, with one of his family members. But him and I had been talking on the phone most of the day. And I cannot remember had I seen him earlier or I went to church or whatnot, but supposedly she was supposed to be at the house. And I'm talking on the phone with him. We're having conversation. He was at the store. He was like, yeah, I'm going to get some stuff. I'm going to cook and all of that. And there was a suspect that she was at the house based on what was text to me. So he's at the house. I hear him opening the door. I'm thinking I'm going to go in the house with you. He's like, all right, I'll call you back. Click.
Oh.
So I text her. I said, that's ironic. You don't never hang up the phone with me when you go in the house. Why you hang up this time? He's like, no, I'm just trying to handle. I'm trying to finish cooking and all that. I'm a call. So you haven't been on the phone with me and cooked with me before. So what's the difference? I did something that I had never done before.
What'd you do?
My hair was really, really long. I pulled my hair up in a ponytail.
I already know what that means.
I put on some sweatpants and some tennis shoes and a t-shirt.
Cindy,
I called one of my best friends. What are you doing? We got to ride out. She said, no problem. Come get me.
That's the girlfriend. You got it. No, I'm joking.
We drive down there. I
Oh.
pull up. There's more than one car there. I knock on the door.
Wait. Did you put Vaseline on?
No, I didn't. You know this. I'm all beefed up, like I'm doing something there. Let me tell you what my head said. I'm gradually. I get there. I knock on the door. His oldest son answered the door.
Right.
Canceled everything. I am not going to do anything in front of that baby. Even though he was 16, 17 years old, still, I'm not going to act a fool in front of this child. And he said, uh-oh. Because I had built a relationship with this young man, a good relationship as who I was.
So he knew something was wrong.
Yeah, I've heard some of the things that his child did say about the actions that he did not agree with.
Really?
With his father. So I go in and I see him pretending to be asleep probably on his lazy boy. I come around, the way the place was made up, I came around and I see her.
Was she wearing anything provocative or just?
No, dressed like Sunday's best or whatnot, because the son was there.
Oh, that's right.
So she was clearing the table and was apparently washing the dishes while he was relaxing.
Were her kids there?
No, just his son. Okay. And I think his son got on text messaging real quick because his children knew me. They have known me for years at this point. And I think at this point, his children should have known me about 9 years, 8 or 9 years.
What?
I had been in their life at 8 or 9 that had been in their life. So I go in, I was like, she was like, I said, Kendra? She was like, Cindy. I was like, hey, what is your relationship with him? She put up her hand with the ring on it. And then she stuck her hand back in the water real quick. I said, and so when were y'all supposed to get married? She said, oh, this past October, but he didn't do it.
But you were engaged to him.
I said, right? I'm engaged. Yes. I said, he's already spoke to my father. He's asked for my hand in marriage. They've had a conversation. I said, we're supposed to get married September of this year, which is a couple of months of next year at that point. I think that was at the end of that year. That following year, we were supposed to get married. And I had his name tattooed. I had his legal government name And I also had his line name for his chapter that he was in
That's
tattooed
right.
on my back. So ladies, when they say do not put somebody else, I don't care if it's your husband, don't do it. Now I'll put my
Mm,
children, yes.
right.
But because that cover up is painful. I'll just
Oh,
say that because it's been covered up.
did she have a tattoo as well?
No, when
Okay.
she saw the tattoo, there was all the lies that he had said about me went out the window. I could tell because she started screaming his name, and so this is when he gets up,
So wait. So this entire time he's still laying on the sofa, sleep.
listening. Listen, yes, correct.
And at what point did you start boiling the grits?
See, my mindset's not, and that's the problem. I should have been no.
No, you
Should
don't want to
let.
do it. You see where my mind.
I'm telling you, I've never rolled up, and he knew that I was that. I told you, I gave him the road map.
Where
I was.
was your girlfriend?
Oh, she was standing in the doorway. They never knew she was there. She was ready for the wrong move to happen. She was already. She was on.
What?
I forgot where she was at. She was posted. She could see everything.
Oh,
And so she screams his name. He gets up. And that's, of course, I turn around and I literally, in my mind, I went, oh, shit, we're going to have to fight.
I'd have been like, girl, give me the Vaseline. Catch it.
Everybody but all three of us. Because I believe he might have turned. And so
Wait,
as he
excuse
came,
me. Excuse me. There's a lot of people logged in right now watching. Everyone, I need you to please share this video, hit the like button, and send this link out to people because this is a really good story. Okay, keep going.
Okay.
I'm sorry. My apologies. I had to put that in.
Okay,
So you had the Vaseline on your face, and then what? No.
and my hand. I had the because she went for him, and I was like, oh my, like we're gonna have to fight him. I'm coming down here. I don't want nobody to get hurt because I'm hurt. So I deflected from my own pain. Like I'm just I had to go back to I had a thug day back in the days because I used to fight when I was like 6 and 7
Right.
years old. My mind went there too, like I'm gonna have to fight him. I knew he had told me that he had a black belt and he could kill somebody with his hand because he's a black belt. So he always told me, don't worry, I got you. So I knew I don't know if that's even true that he has a black belt, but that's one thing I remember him telling me because he's like, I'm a protector.
Right.
So all that was running through my mind. I was like, but I didn't do anything wrong. So she was like, what is this about? She's screaming at him because she called him one name. I called him another name. So we called him two different names. And so she's screaming his name. And I turn around to him. I had his key we both had a key to his house. We can both show up at any time.
So
You're my fiance. Why I got to tell you anything? So I later found.
bold.
Yes, I handed him the key, but I later found there was 4 numbers on that keychain.
Right.
I never knew that was to her address until after the fact.
What?
The keychain was the numbers to her address, to her house. I did not know that until after the fact. So I said, I will talk to you, Kendra. We can step outside and we can talk. I really have nothing to say to him at this point. And because she had grabbed my hand and she started pulling me, she was like, please talk to me. I knew something. I kept feeling something. I said, I can talk to you outside. I'm still trying to stay calm because I know his son is there. If his son was there, I don't know how I would have reacted. I'm just going to be honest. I would have been that.
You'd have been that chick.
Yes, because I knew I had my girl back there and I knew she could throw down. She don't care who you were. She would go tag. She would have tore up something.
I need her as a friend.
I just said, I looked at her. I went over to the child, to his son. I was like, I am sorry. I wish you the best. I was like, I gotta go. So her and I, she was like, you sure? So I got in the car. I was driving crying mad, and then I started getting mad and bold and talking mess and da 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 da. And then he called me like, "You got nerve to show up at my house?" I said, "In man, I'm your fiance. I should be able to show up when I want to, because you can show up at my house when you want to, because I know I'm not doing anything. How could you do this to us?"
What in the
Listen.
hell? Wow.
And I said to him, "I hope she's worth it." And I
Yeah.
hung up in his face. And then he kept calling me. And then all this big, couple of days later, I'm sorry. But he had positioned his female relatives to help too. So he had manipulated them so bad. I would get calls from them. "Oh, he loves you. He's so sorry. I haven't seen her. Please give him a chance." So nobody really knew I had that other part happening as well. And in my mind, they really didn't mean any harm. I thought they were my girls looking out for me, being a female, and telling me, he was probably telling them, "Well, I care for, because I know I care for Cindy more. He really wants to be. He's just trying to figure out of the relationship," or just different things they would tell me.
Right.
But on the flip side, they started telling me, "You deserve better than him. You don't need to be with him." But I was so gone ahead. I wasn't hearing it now, because you were just saying the other thing. So really, all this time, I found out later, my friends and my family was petrified. They saw it, but they could only do but support me,
Right.
because telling me, tearing them down, knew that I wasn't going to leave.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We see it when we're ready to see it.
They just prayed a lot. I heard they prayed a whole lot and never gave up on me.
So let's talk about the incident. I didn't get to this part in the book, so I'm probably gonna ask a lot of questions, but I don't know like how did anything lead up to that actual event. Well, of course it did, but help us out. Like what happened?
Because I know in the I did put in the book. I'm trying to think of, just there was a lot of things happening with the church. He in that January, because we started going to. I told him what I happened. I remember telling his niece, only way he can even deal with me, we have to go to therapy. Check. I just gave you the map to what I need for you to do, opposed to shutting my mouth and just saying it's over, let you figure it out, which he would have never figured out, and I would have probably healed and kept it moving. But I gave her that I gave her the roadmap.
Right.
Sometimes women, you just got to really, only person you need to be talking to at that level is really God. So I remember saying that to her. A couple of hours later, "Please give me a chance to talk to you. We can go to therapy."
Damn.
Never thinking that she had said that to him.
Damn.
I'm so daggone gone. That went right over my head. So you willing to go to therapy? Yes, anything to keep you. Okay, I'm going to set it up. If you wanted to go to therapy, then you should have put the effort. That's what you're looking for. Why am I putting the effort together? Just show up. Just do. I went through everything. Set it up. We're going to therapy. Mr. Mitchell probably saw a whole lot as he was trying to navigate through what was going on.
Now he was a therapist?
Yes.
Okay.
I remember we had to write a letter and then tear the letter up after we wrote it. He started going into the childhood. And I had found out some different things even in that therapy session. He would give us books that we need to read and stuff. One of them was the 5 love languages. Y'all need to know each other's love language. It was a lot of help, healing. It was a lot of healing. He's texting it and putting in his notes. I'm doing the same thing, and I went and purchased all the books. He ain't purchased nothing. So,
This sounds so familiar.
so we
Wow.
go, he's
Yeah.
checking that. So then in March, his father drops dead at his church after
Oh.
singing. So he loses his father. Because I had just told him I'm stepping away from all of this. And he was going to be gone for 2 weeks with the military. So I said, give me those 2 weeks to figure it out. That was on, I told him that on the 7th, no, on the 8th, after I had went to church. But by the time all of that was finished in the
Mhm.
conversation, or I told him that week prior, I ended up, he begs me, he used his mom a lot too, because I was really close to his mother.
Right.
So he used the mom to, he was like, hey, my mom need a ride to the church. I have to be there early. Can you get her? Okay, fine, I'll do it. This is March 8th. I remember making sure she was good before I left to go home because I was going to a baby shower. His mother used my phone to call her husband. Hey, Cindy's leaving now. I'm just waiting on you to get here. Okay. That was the last conversation. I remember going to
Mhm.
the baby shower. I was there for a while and then I ended up leaving. I wasn't feeling good. Something was just weird to me. So I get home. I go to kind of lay down and chill. I get a phone call from his sister screaming,
Be
he's
careful how
gone.
you say this.
He's gone, he's gone, he's gone. That's all she was telling me.
Oh, okay.
His father had passed away.
Mhm.
That's March. Then the preacher, the head bishop came. He preached at the funeral. And at that point, he reached to William to preach at what we call the convocation, which was huge. That was a huge thing to do. So William asked me to go with him to sit up in the front with the first ladies and all of that. He always brought me to the convocation. I always went to those things for pretty much the whole 10 years. That was huge. We leave from there. Now, this is in, I think, April. So I'm leading up to June. So, April, we leave from there, but we had to go do something with this job where we were going to go to North Carolina. So, which means I was going to be there for 2 weeks. I didn't bring all my items with me to
Mhm.
that location. So, I left some of my stuff in his house.
Okay.
So we come back after he had preached, everything was good. We were supposed to go out to dinner. Then all of a sudden, he leaves out for a moment and then he comes back and he's talking on the phone, screaming where I can hear him. What are you doing at my house? I'm going to call the police right now. Nobody told you to be in my house. I'm like, who are you talking to?
Did it sound fake or phony?
Now, yeah, I thought it was really in a situation, but now that I
Mhm.
know what was going on, then I get a text message from his niece saying she found your pink bag. I was like, who is she? That's when I put together she was at his house cleaning or doing whatever she do when he goes out of town, and my pink bag was at the house because it was the rest of my clothes. I wasn't gonna drag all those clothes with me
Right.
for 2 weeks, and that was I was about to leave and just go home, and he begs me to stay, but then he makes me feel like I go with him and his sister and the husband out to go and eat. I'm sitting there like, why am I still letting this beat me down? I'm sitting
Mhm.
out eating lunch and this just transpired.
Mhm.
We're sitting on the porch. I see the car go by, which was her car. It was like that was her car. She drove right past us.
Oh.
This is after her and I had found out we were both engaged to him, but supposedly she had broke it off or they had broke it off, but obviously it hadn't. Let's go. I go out of town with him to North Carolina. So I don't leave. We go to North Carolina. All these text messages are coming. Now, in the midst of this, him and I have been looking for a house. I get a text message from his sister to say, Kendra just showed me the same house you and him just looked at.
Girl, stop.
What?
Oh my God.
We're so now it's going downhill. One of his guys that he worked with, I was really good friends with the young man. And I remember I was just my mind was spinning. I was like I was here, but I was not here.
Mhm.
And I remember leaving that dinner after I had found that out because I was sick to my stomach. He kept fussing about a toothbrush. Now I'm like, let's just stop at a store. You
Mm-hmm.
could have bought a toothbrush, but you're whining saying that I misplaced your toothbrush because I used to pack his clothes whenever we went
Right.
on trips. I packed
Right.
everything for him. We stopped. When I run inside, his person that worked for him, he was the guy's boss. He looked. I don't know why. Well, I do know why he came in, but he looked at me and he's like, "Cindy, you gotta go." I was like, "What?" He said, "You gotta let this go. You deserve better." He's like,
Wow.
please don't tell him I said this to you, but
Mm.
you deserve better. You give so much. That shit hit. Now that wasn't a red flag. That was a red cloth of all. That was everybody flag.
That was a blanket.
Yes. And all I did was take the blanket and put it over my head
Mm-hmm.
and didn't listen.
We do that. We do that. Yeah.
He cried, literally cried out to me. He looked me in my face. This is a young white guy, and said, "Please." And I said, "I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm in the daggone grocery in the drugstore crying, but I'm okay." So I pull
Mm-hmm.
it together. I get back in the car. On the way home, he didn't drive. We were in a van. On the way home, he steady texting or doing stuff. I just really didn't talk to him. So I get back.
Mm-hmm.
This is because I think Kendra and I had a text message because I apologized to her for the pink bag or whatnot. You don't need to be in all our relationships. She was like, him and I are in a relationship. I said, I tried to talk to you. I said, you know what? Leave it alone. She's delusional. That's my thought. I'm just delusional. We're both delusional.
Right.
So I get back. Um, I had designed a tattoo for him. He was coming up to Atlanta. So now we're reaching into May. May is when they're having a church preachers appreciation. He had called me that Saturday. He was upset and he was crying, saying that he had missed his father. And so I knew this was coming because we had ended up going to church I would go every other Sunday. He was like, "Well, you shouldn't be driving down so much." That's because I found out he was taking her one Sunday and taking me the other Sunday. So we all being paraded in front of the church.
Has anyone in the church said anything to you all?
To me, yes. One lady did. One who could reach out to me, reached out to me and just was like making sure I was okay. And she was so sorry. And they were saying, I think they also pushed the limit, pushed the envelope as well, because what they were seeing, that church didn't go for, because it was more men in this church. The other
Oh.
church he preached at was predominantly women.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
they just probably was like, we just want to look at them. But
Mm-hmm.
this church, it was a lot of married couples in there, and it was men that was not putting up with it. So I
Mm-hmm.
believe there was a push on that. That's what started the ball rolling and spinning as well.
So now we're into May before the incident.
So May 31st, I remember I do get up. I go to the church. I was like, why am I laying in the bed? They appreciating him, the church. I'm supposed to be there with him. So I drive there. I had spoken to his sister earlier to let her know that I was coming because she was an associate preacher as well. So when I get there, one of the church members, she was like, "Oh, I'm so glad you came." I was like, "Yeah, I'm surprising him." She was like, "That is so good." So I text him, "Hey, I made it. I know I should have been here. Here I am." Oh, I'm sitting down in the pew with the program in my hand. He texts me, they canceled it. We're not going to have it. They were fussing about it was too much money. As I read it, I look up, Kendra walks in. I
Oh.
said, "Oh, now I understand." She comes in and young his youngest daughter sits down by me and Kendra sits next to her. He's sitting
Awkward.
he's sitting up in the he's sitting up in the front because they're everybody's giving him accolades and whatnot. I could only imagine what those church members were were thinking and saying.
Oh my God.
I could see Kendra's leg just bobbing. And he was texting me and he was texting her. I know she was probably going off on him. I'm trying to ignore him. Then he tells me his mother fell and that I needed to drive to go to be with his mom because she fell. Normally, that's what I do because that's
But you didn't this time?
no. I sent a message to his sister who was sitting on the up in the pew. Um, I said, "Your mom fell. Is she okay?" She says, "Yes, my daughter is with her." I said, "Well, William said I need to leave to go." She was like, "No, you don't.
So
She's all
wait.
right."
So while this service is going on, all this text messaging is going on at the same time. Wow. Okay. I just had to get clarity on that. So
Then it,
okay, so mom is okay.
yes,
And there's
Kendra gets up and she walks out for a moment. She was probably trying to gather her thoughts and get herself together. Then she comes back in and she sits down. Church goes through
was her hair in
everything.
a ponytail?
No, she should have
Oh.
had it in a ponytail. I've been right there with her. Now I would have been right there with her.
Yeah.
I can only because she had been with him for 15 years. I had been with him for 10.
That long.
She kept saying that.
Oh.
So after church, we're in the back. The sisters was like, "You two need to talk." I said, I'm she's sitting right there next near me. She's one chair over. And we're in the back where we're having dinner. And I said, "I reached out to you to talk to you so I can get a better understanding." And I'm like, I was sitting in my head, like, what do you need to understand? There's nothing to understand. He is cheating on both of us. Why is my self-esteem that low? Why is hers? We're both mentally beat down
Right,
of
right.
not wanting to let go of someone who don't care nothing about us. But I could not see to that point. It's almost like you're battling. Yeah, if I let him go, she wins. It's not a
Yeah.
and women, I know we think that.
We do think that.
And that's where my mind was. I'm not going to lose. This is the wrong time to be competitive. This is nothing to be competitive for. This is
Mhm.
when you cut your losses. And
Mhm.
and then I looked, oh my gosh, 10 years. Almost 10 years I've been with this person. This I can work through it. We're in counseling. And your children, they the ones suffering the most. And you find out this later when you wake up. So
Mm.
we leave. She gets up to go say, well, he needs to come out here with us. And then whatever happened down there, I didn't see it, but she's like, he's blaming me or something to that effect. I had had enough. I had bought him some popcorn, not popcorn. I bought him a card. I gave him his card, his thing for the appreciation, and I left. I gave him a hug and I left so they could deal with whatever they need to deal with. Halfway down, I received a text message from her where she had my name and his name. And she said, I guess it's my side, Cindy's side, and your side. We don't know what your side is. And I told her, I tried to reach out to you. I tried to talk through this and blah, 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 but you didn't. Later on, there was some text message between myself and his niece. But later on, the text messages that were actually used in court, Kendra and I talking back and forth. And
Mhm.
I'm revealing things that were transpiring because, like I said, we both had a key. And she said something about the latch that was on the door. I said, well, maybe he put that latch on the door so we don't end up there at the same time. And she said, well, he told me it was something about some work person
Right.
at the job. And then she talked about, I told him what happens in the dark is going to come to light. That was actually used. And she said, I wouldn't be lying that I don't still love him. I know you love him, but my children are older. We just got to move on, something to that effect. But all of that was read in court because I screenshot all that and sent it to the detectives.
Mhm.
Then I received a phone call that my aunt had passed away. And so I was like, I can't. This is just the worst day. And so Kendra was like, I'm so sorry. She was like, God bless you. I said, God bless you to you. And we kind of ended the text. So trying to uplift each other, yet and still, we're both wanting to still be with this man.
Right.
That's
Woo.
May 31st. June 1st, he had an appointment in Atlanta to finish his tattoo. And we also had an appointment to go to the therapist. I went to the therapist by myself. There's a lot of words said to me by the therapist. He went to get the finishing of his tattoo, and he just kept texting me, begging me to meet him at Tanger Outlet. He wanted to talk to me. I was nervous because what is this? You know, I had almost told myself, if this don't end well, we get into a fight. I know he had already showed me I know he carried a gun all the time.
Pow
I flip
pow.
off. Oh, I mean, a pow pow.
Bang bang pow.
Yeah, he carried a bang, 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 bang. And I'm like, I'm gonna be fine. I called my best friend. I was like, hey, I'm gonna go meet him. Me hear what he's gonna say, and I'm done. Oh, he spilled it out. He gave me everything of I'm so sorry, crying, the whole nine. I really want to go through. We're in therapy. I want to make this work. You have treated me like the king, and I don't deserve to be treated. Everything I needed to hear.
The blueprint, yeah.
And he said, give me 2 weeks. I'll give you 2 weeks of just, we won't talk, conversation. I really want you to think this through. Now you say that, but then you asked me to pick you up from the airport on June 5th. Pick him up at the airport, drop him off. We had made a decision to get married June 12th. We are just going to go to the courthouse. I've been through all of this, but I'm still willing because I think counseling is going to help us. We're going to work it through. If he's married, he's going to be committed to me because he's chosen to marry me. This is all in my mind. And I was willing to go through with it.
Okay.
I go to my aunt's funeral, come back from New Jersey. I remember he was texting me on June 10th, which is my daughter's birthday. June 12th, that night of the 11th, he said, make sure you're there. I forgot what time I was supposed to pick him up. I was like, well, we're going to be pushing it, trying to make it to the court.
Right.
And I said, well, okay, I will be there to pick you up. I remember going to sleep. I remember a friend calling me, but I'm one of them ones, I will answer the phone and be asleep and throw it down and don't. Mm-hmm. Only time I remember the phone call ringing was at 1:06, June 12th, a.m. Mm-hmm. All I hear is she's taken, well, no, he said she bang, bang to the head, bang, bang to the head.
What? And that was like, him William calling you? Saying that?
Yes. I'm like, what? And so I'm like, you stop and say, I thought you were in a whole nother state. Because you're supposed to be flying in. That comes across. I was like, then I started rationalizing, oh, he flew in early because I made the statement, do you think we'll make it to the court in time? So he was going to call me in the morning to come on down. That's how I rationalized that. And he said, no. Then I was like, okay, I'm on my way. I'm thinking she don't lost it. I was like, is the cops there? Yes, they're here. I had that. Well, I remember waking up one of my daughters. Something has happened. I'm trying to throw stuff in a suitcase. I'm heading down there. I end up calling my best friend. And in the midst of me talking to my best friend, I get a text from his sister saying that she was deceased.
Oh.
And it was a whirlwind at that point. Of course, all the investigation. I remember what was said to me about picking him up. And then, of course, I'm there. I tell the investigator my credentials.
So you were still a cop at this time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I tell her that, and I tell her that we were supposed to get married today. And she said, what? Because they had the 911 tape, which is on YouTube. The 911 conversation, the whole 911 call is on YouTube.
Is this the same lady? What's the name? Was it Oxygen?
Yes.
Was that the same cop on Oxygen that you talked to? The lady with the blonde hair?
Yes, Sergeant Rutherford. She the Oxygen is telling the view of the investigation from the detective's point of view. I didn't even know it was even coming on or it was even being put together. I found out when it hit the air because one of my aunts called me and said, hey, what's your ex-fiance name again? Was it William? She was like, never mind. That just saw they just said your name. I said, say what? So they were able to get their part out.
So the story that initially that you were told is that she unalived herself.
Yes.
So how did they prove that, or if he did it, or were they trying to blame it on you, or
Of course, every detective has to look at all parties. You're going to look at my phone. You're going to look at,
were you
talk with.
scared, or were you just so numb
I
that
was so
nothing
numb.
bothered?
I was so numb. I knew I had nothing to do with nothing. I wasn't worried about that part. But
Mm-hmm.
anybody can lie and flip the script. I started playing it in my head where I know at one point she he must have been encouraging her to say, well, tell her to come down here. And we all talk about it. It could have all ended with I had to kill her. Well,
Oh,
I had to do this to
uh-huh.
because she was doing that. So I was saving. It could have went all kinds of ways. Had I just went over to the house
Oh
to
my
have a
God.
confrontation, to have a conversation. So he put out what he put out.
Mm,
And so it was a lot of work. She had to do I wouldn't have wanted this case. But
damn.
the oxygen, when I saw oxygen and saw all that's when I first saw all the evidence. I was like,
So there were things that you never knew that you found out.
but I went back. I went back to him. I believe that she unalived herself.
You
Why?
did.
Because of my mind, where my mind was, I could see going there. I could see going there. And that's where I personalized where my mind was.
So we have a question. Dwana wanted to know which episode was this on Oxygen?
Season 3, episode 2, Unholy Secrets.
Unholy Secret. Let me write that down. Because I was trying to scrub. Hey, Linda. Beautiful Linda. So, okay, let me put that in the chat. You said on Oxygen.
Yes, accident, suicide, or well, that's the name of the TV show. I don't know how
That's
to
right.
because it has the red and white peels and all the designs. So it's on oxygen.
You said season
Accident, unlived. What is it? Unlived and
unalive.
unalive and no longer were committing that heinous
Yeah.
crime.
So how did they, and can somebody put it in the chat if you've seen that episode, or if you have not seen the episode, drop a 1 in the comment section. She said yes, it sounds familiar. Um and if you all have any questions for Cindy, respectfully, drop them in the chat, please. So how did they prove that he, was it the same bang bang, the pow pow he had was used on her to unalive her, or
Yeah, they did a very good. It was apparently well when you see the TV show, they had a lot of concrete evidence from what I can see.
mm-hmm.
Um, and I remember in the news they said that he kept changing his story because
Hell
he's never
no.
directly told me what happened. I could hear different people in the house when all of this stuff was going on, um, talking about what could have happened. I remember when one of his cousin called me her name. Now I should have got up and left.
Hell no. I would have shook not the table, I would have shook the house.
And then he was like, I'm
Hell no.
so sorry, Cindy. And
Oh,
then I started looking around at everybody, and I'm like, everybody that I had met with him, in my mind, they all knew. Well, I've been finding out
yeah.
a lot of people did not know. He was that manipulative. He manipulated, I believe, he manipulated his sisters, nieces. One sister was just not having it. She had shut it off, and it is what it is. I'm done.
Thank you, Gia.
Um,
So, okay, good. I'm going to refer back to this so I can watch it. So, after the incident happened, how soon D- did he was he arrested that evening? Like
Oh no,
how does that
he was treated as a they have to do the investigation. He was a victim in a sense that he witnessed, this horrific incident in front of him, and so they went from there, and it was some good investigation. That's all
wow.
I'm gonna say. That team did good investigation too.
Did they oh, well, I have so many questions.
It's
So
it's a lot of newspaper articles. It's a lot. When you Google his name, you'll see some of the um I think when they set his bond, I remember hearing his lawyer talk, and they're talking things out, and it was all the congregation. It was a lot of people there. You could see it on the one of the YouTubes. I'm thinking it's still up there. Um
how soon was he arrested after the incident?
I believe it was 2 months later. So
Really?
they had to really deb in doing. They had a lot of people oh, it was so much that was coming out.
I wonder
And
if
I'm
they talked
like,
to his kids.
huh?
I wonder if the investigators talked to his kids.
I'm not sure. I was clear. Well, clearly they couldn't talk. I had to do my part, but
Right.
clearly I went back
Wait, what? After he powed her?
because she unalived herself.
So it was almost as if someone bowed out of the competition.
It was more of I wasn't worthy.
What do you mean?
Because I had things that happened at my job. I was giving up on everything, and I think what happened at my job was really related to what they might have been thinking. So they kind of put it got deeper in the book, but
Okay,
I
yeah.
found where I can prove I know what I didn't do. Um, so I didn't go right back because eventually initially I was there. I was like, I remember saying to myself that I'm sitting here trying to console somebody who caused all this trauma with my head and her head spinning of the love we have for you, and you just manipulated us. That was my first thought. I was so numb. And so I remember one of his aunts saying, well, I guess she is going to go back because her competition is gone. And
Yeah.
I was like, no,
Were you ever
no.
scared to be around him after the fact?
I think I was scared not to be around him because
Oh,
when you're closer, you can see. Then there came a point where I never told anybody that I was scared to be around him. I just
mm,
kept I kind of I really I remember one time sitting there because I had started college, and I was going for my bachelor's degree, and we're talking crime and stuff because it was in criminal justice. And there was like sometimes I was like, I don't even deserve, if something happened to me, then I would be out of the pain.
oh, wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
like
Did
she never did anything to me. Is how I definitely saw it. And I didn't do
what?
anything to her. I'm like, he was the problem, but I couldn't see. It's like I don't deserve to be with anybody else.
Well, yeah. That's
And
a trauma bond, boy. Yeah. That
he asked me to come back, and he kept on because I remember they brought me back in to have another conversation, and this was right before they were going to serve the warrant.
mm-hmm.
And she brought me in. I thought she was bringing me in to go over my statement again to make sure. So I was like, okay, that's no problem. I don't have a problem going in to go over my statement. I'm like, I know I didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
And so what she did was she pretty much, I look at it two ways from being in that field. She told me they had enough to move forward
To arrest him.
to arrest him. So it threw me off like, why are you telling me? My understanding, they might have been wanting to see what my actions were going to be, because that's what I would have been looking at. I've never been that level of a type of detective. But let's see if she really involved. Let's see what she do with this information. She gonna run back, tell him so he can run. Those are things that I thought about after the fact. So when she told me, I'm out of it. I'm not. It's not for me to go and tell him. I don't get in the middle of that. So when I leave, he kept on calling me and kept on texting me. I didn't want to go. When she told me that, I had a fear that day. Like, still, I couldn't say it. He couldn't have done this. He couldn't have done that. I kept saying that in my head. But
They
I
had
didn't.
already had her funeral?
Yes.
Did you go?
Oh, no.
Okay. I mean, I wouldn't have either,
He
but
went. He went and viewed the body by himself. I said, if that's not looking at that's somebody going to look at their own work.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That is evil.
That is something you see on a TV show.
Yeah, this literally sounds like a movie.
So I remember her telling me, and I was trying to figure out how to get back home. I had started really keeping a lot of stuff to myself because it was no point of exposing my family, of knowing really the level of trauma I was going through, of knowing that I knew they had a warrant, and him trying to keep me to stay. He was like, I'll take you to dinner. I'm like, no, I need to go back home. No, why are you leaving? He's like wanting me to stay, and I'm wanting to go. And I remember I wouldn't get out. I don't think I got in my car, and I wouldn't get back out my car. I was firm about heading back. And he kept on calling me, how you just gonna leave me? Then I stopped answering the phone. And so
Was he still going to work while they were
he
investigating?
Yes, because I mean he started some things happening at work, but yes, he was able to preach and everything because he's not, he's innocent until. So
Girl.
oh
my God.
I was just waiting. It was I think it was 4 days later when they finally, because I never said anything. It wasn't my place to say anything. You did this, you caused this, you go through it. So it wasn't my place. So I remember I was getting my hair done and I got a phone call. And when I saw it, I thought it was from the detective because it was her name showed up. Or no, it was the county where he was at showed up. And I answered the phone. He was like, hey, can you call my lawyer? They arrested me.
What?
And so it just kind of shook me. I remember getting up and just going outside because I didn't want anybody to see. I'm like, I'm crying. And was I crying for him or was I crying for relief? Because I had been dealing with this for 4 days. So I think it was more relief because you don't want to put yourself in this position to be even questioned. Because I remember that day that it happened. Of course, she has children. He called the children that morning saying I'm sorry. I remember that. I remember him talking on the phone and didn't realize it was to one of her children. And then I think the children's father got on the phone and cussed him out.
Really?
And so then he hangs up the phone and he comes in and he's like, I was trying to call the girls to tell them how sorry. And then he gonna sound I'm gonna make sure you go to jail and all of this and that.
So now he turned on you.
Huh? He was just telling me what happened. And so I say to him, I was like, well, sound like you need a lawyer. So this woo.
That's a lot.
So yes, and then I know initially my job, they told me, let them do the investigation. Don't try to do anything. So because I was like, I have text messages between her and I. And so they told me to shut it because I was going to send them to them. And so I stopped. So 2 years later, I get a phone call. I was back in law enforcement. I had left that job. I was back in law enforcement.
So I didn't know you were a detective.
At one point, I was. I've been a detective. I've worked Homeland Security. I've worked
What?
undercover. I've worked a lot of different areas.
I
I
didn't
was a
know
theft
that.
and fraud detective. Yes,
A what?
a theft and fraud detective, and some I did some
Really?
burglary detective. Well, cases as well.
So you didn't get any pushback from the police department.
Got a lot of pushback. It was a whole. That's a whole nother story.
Okay. If you all want Cindy to come back, drop a one in the chat.
Oh, look what time it is.
Oh, I know. We need to. So yeah, we're gonna press pause on this. Um, yeah, grandbaby may be here, but
Oh, yes. Let me see.
yeah,
Oh goodness.
I didn't even realize it was that late.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh, I have all these. I have a million text messages.
is the baby here?
Uh, Nothing from there.
Okay. So yeah, we'll press pause on this.
Okay.
I didn't realize how long it was either. I told you I'm a true crime junkie and
Oh,
mental health as well. And all this is, it was getting to that point, but we can always press pause for a moment. And you're getting someone, so people want you to come back. Oh,
oh, I know. Sonya Porter asked the question. I don't know if I should
yes.
answer it
Yeah,
real quick.
absolutely. So Sonia asked, do you think you would
What
be the
was her?
person you are now if you hadn't gone through what you did?
No. That I know. My test is a testimony, and telling my story is just one level of it. Now I want women to know what my mindset was to help them go
Mm-hmm.
to that next level. I equated, there was something that I know we spoke about. I equated sex and love as one. Um,
Yeah.
Especially with him.
Mm-hmm.
When I was going through the storm, I was like, no. And it's just, oh, my daughter says she's not here yet. So my grandbaby's not here yet.
Grandma's coming. Hold on, baby.
So that's my other daughter. But I have a lot of people that's on here saw some of the storm, but because I left, I literally went black, changed my phone number. It was some people tried to reach out, some didn't even know how to reach out. I've heard stories of what was said about me
Really?
at the police department.
Oh,
I've heard other people's like, I don't care what they said. I didn't believe none of it. You know, I've heard more of I didn't believe none of it, opposed to I did believe, as in things that happened with me at the police department. But I will
mm-hmm.
say I can say my friends never really left me. Now they stood on the outside because they didn't know where my mindset was, which I
Right.
appreciated. But I was all over the place, and my mental health was shot.
Right.
It was done. So I
Did you
did
ever
go
go? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
group therapy. Yes, I had
Yeah.
intense group therapy because I've been literally one of the biggest hurdles that I had to face. Well, not a big hurdle, but what helped me down off the cliff is one of my daughter's father had unlived himself, and I wasn't
Oh,
going to do that.
really?
So I had to take it back. But I mean, people could have walked away from me and just said, hands off, all that. But they didn't. I knew they cared about me from afar. And some were
Mm-hmm.
very close and allowed me to talk through it. You know, if they judge me, I don't know, not the people who I know personally. Um,
Right. Well,
but
speaking of the judging, can you talk about before we get off about how some men have asked you questions about your kids?
oh, being a mother of five,
Yeah. We had talked about that earlier.
Yeah, I did a lot of judging of myself because they'll look at you, and it was a discussion I had with a man,
Mm-hmm.
and they say that they'll look at a woman, you got 5 children with 5 different fathers, so how
Mm-hmm.
many other men you don't been with? Because that's just the ones you had babies with, and we can look
Mm-hmm.
at you negatively. I said they didn't even have to judge me. I had already condemned and mentally said, but I was like, at this point in my life, you can go ahead and judge me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
walking the path that God has ordained from the day that I was born, that I'm supposed to walk this path
Right,
and
right.
survive and tell my story. So if you're going to condemn and shame on me because I have 5 children, that's on you. You look in the mirror and tell me what yours is. You can have 5 kids with one person who dogged you out and don't do nothing for you. So, I did hit myself. I was like looking at my children like, I'm sorry that this happened, that you have
Mm-hmm.
different fathers. And then I would mess with them. I was like, because all of y'all are so special. I gave you your own daddy.
There it is.
So, but yes, a man could judge me. I could judge them, but I'm not going to judge anyone. If someone is for me, they're for me.
Right, absolutely.
But I had to learn how to be careful because I noticed a lot of them was like, as long as I can get the panties and you got all these children, I ain't gonna commit to you. But
Right.
I could pretend I can get the roadmap of which.
Oh, her computer stopped. If you all can see me and hear me in real time, can you drop a one? I don't know if I have frozen as well. Because Cindy has. Cindy, if you can hear me, you can go out and come back in if you need to. So you can hear me. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Gia. Gia, I don't know what okay. So, okay. Well, I guess her grandbaby that's coming out, she pulled the plug. So grandbaby said, I'm coming, so I'm pulling the internet. So we're going to conclude this. This was really good. Thank you all so much for, yep, there she goes. Thank you all for tuning in. This was a story. I mean, my God, it was a lot more detailed than I thought. And Cindy had said that there's more, her Wi-Fi went out. Okay, no worries. We're gonna come back. So yeah, again, um, it just goes to the mindset. And I love how transparent that Cindy has been, and that her I believe that her being transparent the way she has been has aided to her healing, and not judging herself or carrying any guilt. And that's a brave person. That is truly a superwoman, where you can come up in your authentic self. So some parts in her book, let me get my notes because it was relatable to me as well. She had mentioned how she had a pattern of ignoring red flags. Now, you all drop a one if this sounds familiar to you, and then please drop a one for me because I've done this as well. Ignoring red flags in relationships, ignoring your intuition, the intuition that we were born with. As a matter of fact, Linda is on here this call, at least she was, and she told me years ago how we are born with this intuition that's innately ours, and that we ignore it because we want the best for a relationship that ultimately is just not good for us. So oh, here she comes back. And then she talked about ignoring her feelings. I've been guilty of this as well. And when we ignore our true selves, we don't come up as our own. Oh, let me tag her in. We don't come up with our own authentic self, And I can tell when she's speaking, she's a healing woman because she can now go back and look and see. I can go back, look and see, and we won't take these red flags and make them into red blankets with pretty red flowers on it, knowing that it's just a toxic ass red blanket, red flag. Antonio has a message for you, Cindy. She said, my friend, don't ever let ignorance hold you down. Love you and proud to call you my friend.
Oh, okay, Tony. Him and his wife, I think, were on there. I think him and his wife.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. That's my brother.
So since we're going to press pause on this, are there any parting words you'd like to share with everyone?
Yes, I am healing. It's a fight every day. And just know, if you're going through it, press pause, review, and look at what's going on. They're giving you all the signs. Ladies, men, whoever's in a situation with, especially a narcissistic person, you have to just take your time and pause and really, really look and make it make sense. If it don't make sense, it don't make sense. So I'm here, and I'm going to keep moving forward.
Absolutely.
Keep talking, be vulnerable with yourself. You got to look in the mirror and just really be vulnerable with yourself. You're going to see it.
Absolutely.
Because they're checking off the, don't give them the roadmap of what you won't accept, because that's what they're going to do. Don't give them the roadmap.
That's true. I love what you said about being vulnerable. Sometimes we feel that being vulnerable is a weakness, and then we go on with this mask on, but being vulnerable is a strength, because it could excite a lot of people. I can just think back in my past. If I would have shown up as my true vulnerable self, I wouldn't have presented myself as how I wanted the relationship to be, as opposed to looking at it for what it really is.
Right. Set the boundaries and say the word no and stick to it.
I love it. I love it. Can you tell everybody where they can purchase your book? I dropped the link, but I can drop it again.
Yes, it's definitely on Amazon if you Google my name, without the Cindy. Also, it is on Target online. It's on Barnes & Noble online. It's really anybook.com. And if you put in the title of it, it will show up. So some people have purchased it in the UK.
What?
But they have, if enough is purchasing it at Barnes & Noble, I've been told they'll bring it in the store to put on the shelf. But you can go to Barnes & Noble and Target.com to purchase it.
Okay.
So it is in paperback, hard copy.
Okay. I know. See, I have a Kindle. I don't know how I can't get it signed. I would love to get it autographed, but I'll take a podcast.
Okay.
Thank you so much, and congratulations on your new grandbaby coming in to this world.
Okay, and thank you for having me. Yes.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. So welcome. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together. If you have any show topics you'd like me to cover, hit me up in my DMs on all social media, Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together. Tell me a topic you want to hear, or if you want to be a guest on this show, remember, anything self-development, relationships, mental health, coaching, you name it, let me know and we can make it happen over here. You all have a great evening, and we'll see Cindy on another podcast with me. Good night, Cindy.
All right, thank you. Good night.
This for the queens, sisters manifesting their dreams. Get your cream by any means and beam with self-esteem. Beauty Beauty supreme and Buddha walk so mean. The way you fit in them jeans, you eat your cornbread and greens. Dance or a doctor, red wine or vodka. Redesign your spot and redefine your mantra. Retwist your locks and realign your chakras. Doing your squats and getting closer to God, huh? Brunching with your squad or taking a girl's trip. Adjust your crown, you God's gift to the world, sis. Celestial body, drink your water. Meditate, sun-kissed goddess, heavenly order. Levitate, tribe of Ashanti. Black girl magic, melanin popping. Whether you ratchet or lavish, whether you bougie or savage, you a gift and a treasure. You got to love a black girl getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, man. These black girls are getting a